Well, I've been to, Hamas celebrations or Hamas events in Gaza City, we should say. The crowds are massive there. They have a large popular base. And I've spent time with people who are sort of part of the middle class intelligentsia in Gaza, who don't support Hamas on a cultural or religious basis, find them to be oppressive, don't support any faction, but they support the Al-Qassam brigades, which is the armed wing of Hamas. And there's a division between the leadership of Hamas and the Al-Qassam brigades. You'll see Hamas leaders out there shaking hands or, um, you know, putting on a show with florid rhetoric, giant events, and they'll be surrounded by the fighters. But you rarely see the leadership of the Al-Qassam brigades, if ever. It's sort of a semi-secret organization like the IRA. Mohammed Deif is the leader. Technically, he's the leader of the Al-Qassam brigades. There's only one photograph of him. Most of his family has been killed in Israeli assassinations. Um, I wouldn't say I was witness to one assassination attempt. I was a neighborhood away when Israel dropped a 2,000-pound bomb on an apartment to kill him, and he survived. They killed his wife and kid. Um, and it's this, and he's probably somewhat malformed or very wounded from all the attacks that he suffered. He's probably in a tunnel. So it's this idea that he suffers with the people and faces the same circumstances that they do. He's not hanging out in Doha in conference halls like much of Hamas's exiled leadership is. And so the people identify with him. He's sort of a folk hero. And the Al-Qassam brigades come from the people. They are a popular fighting force that's supplemented also by Palestinian Islamic Jihad, but also by the PFLP, which is traditionally the left of Palestinian society. In Gaza, it's a little different. They right now, I mean, they're militarily being supported by Iran. There's no Soviet Union to support them. But it's not just Hamas who's taking the fight to Israel at this point. So the point is they have the respect. They have the respect of society, which, like any other society under occupation, wants to fight for their liberation. Hamas also has, its zakat committees, its social aid committees, which have won a lot of goodwill. They've brought people aid. They've been more efficient than the Palestinian Authority as a municipal authority. They've been less corrupt over the years, although as they rule, they become more and more like, a typical government. And, I walked around Gaza City with, some youth, and you would see these guys with short beards and suits on coming out of hotels, and they all have the same look about them. They look like Muslim Brotherhood operatives. And you could see the contempt that the youth would have for them, that these guys are becoming very increasingly insular. They're bringing in money from Qatar to build fancy mosques while the people were suffering. So there was that. But at this point, since October 7th, I mean, everything's been destroyed. And Hamas's message that we suffer with the people is resonating, that we come from the people. And I think they've been greatly underestimated by the West, which thinks that they can be removed somehow or that Palestine can be liberated from Hamas. It's not only delusional, it really speaks to the ignorance, the complete ignorance of the national security and foreign policy elite in the West, that they're actually backing up a regime change campaign against Gaza, which is leading to this humanitarian crisis because they will not allow Hamas police or municipal authorities to operate in the open to protect the aid shipments and to allow the aid to be distributed to the people. They're backing a campaign of the complete political extermination of everyone affiliated with Hamas, which is leading to genocide. So Hamas has to be recognized as a legitimate governing authority if there ever is going to be a Palestinian state, whether you believe in a two-state solution or a one-state solution. The West refuses to do it. I think another aspect here also is Islam and religion, that after the 1967 war, which was so humiliating and was particularly humiliating for Gamal Abdel Nasser, who failed to see that the attack was coming, but also for Hafez al-Assad, the two lions of Arab nationalism. A lot of people just began turning to the mosque and to Islamism. And then within Palestinian society, as Israeli repression grew harsher during the occupation, and then particularly during the first Intifada, which was led by secular organizations, which also gave birth to Hamas. A lot of people also turned to the mosque for protection, to get through the psychological terror that was being imposed on them day after day. And I know women from the West Bank who said that they put on the hijab, they covered their heads just because it made them feel safer as they were constantly being tear gassed and facing violence all the time. And so that has to be recognized as well. There's really nothing that can replace Hamas in Palestinian society unless the West wants to continue supporting nihilistic genocide and allow everyone to starve in a despotic hellhole, in which case you will start to see an ISIS-like group start to come to the fore.
I don't think the world should recognize any Palestinian political movement. The world, I think, is under an obligation to confirm that the question of Palestinian leadership is a question for Palestinians to resolve. It's for the Palestinians, not for the Israelis or the Europeans or the Americans or anyone else to decide who leads the Palestinian people. That is a decision to be made by Palestinians. And just as foreign powers, or let's say foreign states in the United States don't recognize the Republican Party or the Democratic Party or the Green Party or whatever, they recognize the government of the United States. I think the same principle applies here. Don't interfere with the right of the Palestinians to choose their own leadership, as you have consistently done with in the past. Um, uh, Recognize, don't seek to impose leaders on the Palestinians, and recognize those leaders which are organically generated by the Palestinians themselves through their own procedures. So that would be my response to that point.
And if it is Hamas, then it is Hamas.
Well, I think if it is Hamas, I think that would be a real problem for, and that assessment has nothing to do with what is what you hear often in the West about this. It's my own view that the current situation in which the Palestinian people find themselves cannot afford or sustain the hegemony of any one political movement to the exclusion of others.
Mhm.
This gets back to what I was saying earlier. I think the only successful way forward for the Palestinian people is to have some kind of interim leadership in which all primary Palestinian forces are represented and that they collectively agree on the basis of consensus on the way forward, somewhat similar to the way the Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO, operated in the 1970s and 1980s. Yes, you may have had a dominant movement, Fatah, but that had, of course, different wings in it. But all the other main organizations, Popular Front, Democratic Front, and others, were represented within the PLO and its leadership organs, participated in its decision making, and so on. And we need to find a similar formula to exit from the crisis that the Palestinian political system currently finds itself in. And only when you have that kind of genuinely representative Palestinian leadership, can you then begin to address discussions of what are our strategic objectives? Is it one state? Is it two states? Is it the international consensus? Is it to overturn the international consensus? What tactics will we use? Will it be a war of attrition? Will it be an effort to mobilize the Arab military power? Will it be popular demonstrations? Will it be BDS or whatever? Will it be different tactics in different arenas at different times? Only under such circumstances can the right decisions be made, in my view.
Can I
Hi,
leave?
my name is Ayushman. I, along with Jyotisman, have started this platform. In the last 2 years, we have tried to build content for the left and progressive forces. We have interviewed economists, historians, political commentators, and activists so far. If you have liked our content so far and want us to build an archive for the left, I have two requests for you. Please do consider donating for the cause. Link is in the description below. Also, if you are not able to do so, don't feel sad. You can always like our videos and share our videos to your comrades. Finally, don't forget to hit the subscribe button.